Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Why Try hosted webinar. My name's Jason Johnson, and very excited to be with you all today. These webinars it's one of my very favorite things that I get to do. I wear a lot of hats with the Why Try organization, and I think I can say with real sincerity that these webinars are some of my favorites. They're a little bit of work to put on, but they're so fun, and it's such a fun community that I feel really grateful to be a part of. So excited. We've got a great, I think, really timely topic today, and some powerhouse panelists that I'll introduce here in just a minute. Before I do that, just a couple of notes on the webinar and the structure itself. We're going to go for about an hour, give or take a few minutes, depending on how the conversation goes. These are hosted by the Why Try organization, which is an organization I represent. My background is I'm a school psychologist, come from the world of public ed, and then I joined the Why Try organization about almost 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago, and I oversee training and research for them and get to do a lot of really cool things, including this webinar series, which we've been doing for a couple of years now. I counted up, I tallied up, I've done over 80 of these now. And time flies, and I'm really proud of the content that exists in these. I think they've been really fun, really helpful conversations, and it just reinforces that I know the coolest people. I really do. The panelists that are on here are just exceptional. And so that's the plan today. Organizationally, we specialize in helping teach the skills of resilience. And that's usually somewhat connected to the topic that we discussed, but I really like these webinars to be a really open platform where we can have experts on to discuss timely pieces of content that are going to be helpful to educators and mental health providers and community support individuals anywhere. And so that's the plan today. One other note on the webinar itself. So we present these on a webinar link, which means myself and today my two panelists are the only ones that have a live microphone and a live camera. I can't see you and I can't hear the rest of you. So what we do to help maintain live engagement is we do keep a live chat. And the chat is pretty useful. It's a great place where ideas can be shared, questions can be asked, you can respond to the messages that are being delivered. But one thing that is helpful in the live chat is if you will just double check one of your chat settings for me, open up your chat box, and where you type in a message in the chat, right above where you type your message, you'll see it says to, and then there's a little drop down menu where you get to pick who your message is being shared with. If you're willing, adjust that so it says to everyone, and that will make it so that everybody can see your comments, which I feel like adds to a nice energy to the conversation we plan on having today. If it says anything other than everyone, if it says two hosts and panelists, then the three panelists are the only people that can see your message. So go ahead and make that adjustment. And then after you've made that adjustment, go ahead and type into the chat. Just type an emoji that describes or expresses how your week is going so far. So type into the chat box an emoji that expresses how your week is going so far. Oh, it always gets me. And this is the time of year where I get the frozen face emojis. And no exception, by the way, from my headquarters here in Utah. It's we've been sitting in the evening, we've been getting down into the teens, like 18, 16, 19 degrees. We've got snow the last 2 days. I thought we were done, but we keep getting a little more, which is good because we had a light snow winter. So anyway, I've got the snowy face, cold face emoji as well. And for the rest of you, I can empathize with every one of those emojis. This is that interesting time of year for educators, February, you're just trying to survive till spring break. And then, after spring break, that it's a marathon. You got to get in your end of year testing. You got to get in all your other stuff. And you're trying to make it across the finish line. So this is kind of where everything really starts to get get extra exciting. So appreciate you all being here today. All right, for our topic today, we are going to discuss strengthening schools through community partnerships. And I have a panel of guests I'm very excited about. We have two exceptional panelists today. Our first panelist is Robin Mackey. Robin is a licensed social worker with over 25 years of experience supporting children, youth, and families as outreach director and senior trainer for the Parent Project. Spent almost 2 decades training professionals nationwide to help families navigate challenges with at-risk youth, extensive expertise in program development, nonprofit funding, and then also has worked with the Alabama Network of Family Resource Centers. Just an awesome advocate and a great connector of resources. Robin, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next, we have Dr. Tracye Strichik. Dr. Strichik is the director of the Alabama Expanded Learning Alliance, which works to expand after-school programs and secure funding to support student success with leadership experience in early childhood education, literacy initiatives, policy development. In addition to, I lost my notes. Tracye, you're going to have to forgive me. Found it. There it is. In addition to White Riley Peterson Policy Fellow and a local school board member committed to improving educational access, collaborates with state and national agencies to strengthen out-of-school programs, enhance STEM learning, and advocates for policies that uplift families and communities. Tracye, you are absolutely the real deal, and I have really loved getting to know you a little bit through Robin. I'm excited to collaborate more. Welcome, Tracye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So with that, I want to kick off. I think our goal today is to talk a little bit about the benefit of community partnerships, maybe discuss how we might be able to do that, what that might look like. I think sometimes that feels a little bit overwhelming for educators trying to figure out how to do that. And then maybe share some examples and success stories as well. Just to kind of kick off my experience on this, I'm going to, at the risk of embarrassing Robin a little bit, I've known Robin for almost a decade now. I was doing the math in my head. I don't know if you realize that,
Wow.
but it's been close to a decade. And I was new with the Y-Tri organization. I had been working in public ed. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Jason Johnson, former school psychologist. I worked for the largest school district in the state of Utah, Alpine School District, and then came over to the Y-Tri organization about just almost 10 years ago. And so I had been working locally in schools, and I was a very good school psych, and then had this opportunity to work at a broader level, a national level around this topic of resilience. And I was working in the state of Alabama. And back in the day, we would do these resilience events. We didn't do as much virtual then because we weren't as good at it. And so we would go out and we would host these resilience events and try to share strategies for educators to help improve resilience. And my colleague Bruce connected me with Robin. He said, you got to meet Robin. Robin is the person that will help you meet people in Alabama. And so I reached out. I think I cold called over the phone. We connected pretty quickly over this, I think, common passion for really trying to help students. And then very quickly, it was like, Robin, how do I connect to your community? And so when I was thinking about this topic, getting into it, I realized, Robin, you've been a mentor to me for a decade on really creating great community partnerships in a really meaningful and important way. And so I'm excited. This is kind of a fun full circle moment to have you on here and share some of your tips and advice. And from what I've experienced with Tracye, I think you're just right on par with your ability to do this as well. So that's a lengthy intro, but I think it sets us up. Kick us off a little bit. You both work now somewhat outside of like a direct school district, but you're partnering with educators throughout your state and even beyond your state in a pretty effective way, as well as partnering with each other. So maybe kick us off by sharing just some of the reasons why this community partnerships are important and maybe some ways that people can start looking at and considering community partnerships as a valuable resource to them.
You want to go first, Tracye? Or
And
okay, go ahead.
I've known Robin, I think we've gone through 4 or 5 jobs between us because we share a lot of the same philosophical education beliefs that we keep being brought back together. And I learned, I think, with my background in education, I learned about the importance of community ed through working with home visiting programs. And so that's how I met Robin. So that's interesting. But I think first off, I work for the Alabama Expanded Learning Alliance. We are funded by the Mott Foundation. So we're the official after-school network of the state of Alabama. There's 50 of us, so each of you have one in your state. The question was, what is the importance of engaging with community-based organizations? Well, if you think about that from a school point of view, we can't really exist without our community-based organizations. As a school board member, if I take my hat off from being the director of ALA, as a school board member, we have to have our community. A community is only as effective as that school system. And so I think one of the important things, and I know that Robin's going to elaborate on this, is whenever you have certain gaps in your education system, you can look within your community to see what their strengths are and work together to fill those gaps. So I can give some examples, and I think I'll do that later, but I'll pass it over to Robin.
Okay. So I think looking at this through the education lens, community-based organizations and community partnerships can give, especially teachers, hope, because I think that particularly in more rural communities or communities that don't have a lot of services, teachers can find themselves almost playing the role of social worker. And it's schools are doing all they can do, and teachers are doing all they can do to do the job of teaching and educating children. And it's my belief that the community really needs to come around schools, families, and students to fill in, as Tracye said, some gaps, but also to really stretch the resources. What I love about community-based organizations is that, you know, if you've got a local nonprofit that is really hustling in your community, the beautiful thing about a local nonprofit is the flexibility that they have. Local nonprofits are not, they're not bureaucracies. And good, you know, for just saying truth, at some level, every public school is a bureaucracy. And so it's more difficult to move things forward. It takes more energy, it takes more time, it takes more gumption. A community-based organization can make a change with a sticky note. And that is powerful because they can meet your needs more quickly. And that is, I guess, the main point that I want to get across is that I'm confident that no matter where you are, there is more option. There are more options for you to connect because there always are. You can't know about everything that's going on. So I want to encourage you to know what's happening in your community and to find out about what can be done to support your students so that you don't have to do it.
And I mean, I think as teachers, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit, Robin. Yeah. As teachers, we go into that classroom for 6 hours a day, and we're in there with little 18 5-year-olds or whatever grade you're teaching. And so you're the adult solving all the problems. And so when I was in the classroom, I'd think if a child needed tutoring, I had to stay after work and tutor that child. And so that's exhausting. And I wish I really wish my educator prepper program would have made me do what Robin said. Just take inventory of what's in your community.
Right.
There are community-based organizations with retired teachers that beg to tutor. There's community-based organizations that want banks that want to give money to programs within your school system. And so I wish I would have known about that because I probably wouldn't be as exhausted and have as many wrinkles right now, thinking that I had to solve all the problems of the world right there in my classroom.
That's the heart of an educator, though. I mean, we all exhaust ourselves trying to solve the problems of the world. That's what we committed to do. It's exhausting work. But I think your points are really important because it does allow us. I want to highlight a word. So Robin, as we were prepping for this, Robin shared some notes with me as we were kind of working on an outline. And one of the words or phrases you used was amplifying. Let's see. Yes, it was amplifying our efforts, which I think is a really key piece to this because each educator only has so many hours and minutes during the day, and we only have so much that we can do. And so when we connect with community resources, it really frees us and allows us to amplify, which means to make louder or make bigger or make more effective our efforts that we're putting in. And I think that's one of the key pieces, particularly if we start to connect these to specific challenges we're addressing. So I was wondering if maybe this is probably a good point to kind of jump into a little bit on the how. Like, what are some ways? I think this is, as I mentioned, I think it can feel overwhelming sometimes to educators. They may not even know where to start. Let's dig in a little bit to some effective ways to identify and engage with community-based organizations that can help amplify the impact of our work.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. I think the key is to get to know any collaborative effort that is already happening in your community. And so if it's okay, I'm just going to share a very few short slides that have some key, examples and just maybe some questions that you want to ask yourself, because engaging with your community is going to mean that you need to take a few minutes to look at it from the perspective of your partners that you're going to be working with. So let's see here. Hold on. Well, here we go. Okay, perfect. So there's two ways to connect. One, or I'm sure there are lots of ways to connect, but when I think about connecting with my community, I think about reaching out to a nonprofit or a service that you want for your family. That still really puts you in the position, if you're doing individual services that you're connecting with, it still puts you as an educator into this coordinating kind of role. Many of you may have and know communities in schools, which is a fabulous, fabulous thing. And if you're fortunate enough to have communities in schools, then you have that coordinator who is managing those services for you. A lot of areas don't have enough resources to support a communities in schools option right now, but there still are likely collaborative options that are happening in your community. So you can reach out to individual organizations, or you can find out what collaborative work is already happening. We know that when you have a group of organizations that are working together, they get all of the benefits of the strengths of everyone who's in the partnership. And so there are so many advantages to a collaborative partnership. They have a longer lifespan. You can reach more families. They're less expensive to operate, and really staff burnout is less. So in our state, we have something called, I'm losing my words. We have groups in every county. Tracye, you'll help me come up with it. We have
Children's
groups.
Policy Council.
Children's Policy Council. You're
Yeah.
reading my mind. I don't know why that wasn't coming. Children's Policy Councils. So Children's Policy Councils, I believe that every state has something like that. If you don't know about your Children's Policy Council, it's worth finding out, because it's run by a local judge, a family court judge, and agencies come together to talk about what they need, and they do every year a community assessment, and they're constantly building out services that are needed in the community. They figure out what's going to happen. They collaborate to bring in joint funding in a lot of cases. So find out about your Children's Policy Council, and also find out about any other kinds of collaboratives that are already happening. It may look a little different in your state or community, but find out about your Children's Policy Council as a starting point. See who's on it, see what kind of work they're doing. So here are a couple of examples of strong local collaboratives. So if you see this flyer on the left, I love this flyer. This was put together by a local nonprofit called Partners for Peace. It's in Salinas, California. And Partners for Peace is an organization that is providing something in the community that everybody else can't provide. So they do family education. They do several different programs with family education. And look how beautiful this is. Salinas is the salad bowl capital to the world. They have lots and lots of folks who are working in the fields. They have lots of Spanish speakers. Everything they do is in English and Spanish. And they came to, the organization was actually founded to meet this need of family education across multiple school systems and multiple court districts. So if you think about, if your school system is paying for something, you can only use those dollars to serve your own kids, and you may not have enough money to be able to offer a full menu of parent education and support. But if a few of those your dollars are invested and they go into an organization that is able to bring in resources from lots of school systems or juvenile courts or other kinds of groups, then that money can really be stretched. They actually, with their family education, they serve tons and tons of people. They only have 6 full-time paid staff, but they offer about 20 classes per quarter of 10-week cohorts of classes across all the different programs that they do. That is a lot. That's a lot of heavy lifting. And the way they do it is they get people trained and then they contract with them. So everybody that teaches for them is on contract. It's retired educators, it's retired juvenile probation officers. And in a lot of cases, they have agreements with the schools, and people will be teaching these classes and doing their jobs, regular job. So it's a powerful, powerful way to get your community's needs met. And I think one of the most amazing things about their work is that the local collaborative that Partners for Peace is a part of, they do meet regularly and they work together. They set their goals. Salinas has been, unfortunately, that had the distinction of having the highest youth murder rate per capita in California. And so they got a lot of resources to be able to solve that problem. And they no longer are the highest per capita rate. Like it plummeted when this collaborative got together, plummeted, but now they don't qualify for that funding anymore, because it's based on need. So they literally have worked themselves out of a job, at least on that grant. But it's so powerful when people can come together. And if you can connect, just find out who is the mover and shaker in that particular collaborative, it will change your life, because they will know everything about what's going on in your community and how to connect people. And then this other little note that I have here, FACT, Family Assistance Through Community Ties, that's a program that's in Decatur, Alabama, through a nonprofit called PACT. It's a family resource center. And that Family Assistance Through Community Ties is a local initiative that caught fire. And literally they have paraprofessionals, trained paraprofessionals, who are like if a kid needs shoes, the teacher makes a referral to FACT and it gets handled. So their people are constantly in the school. They are doing home visits. They're doing all these things that educators don't have the bandwidth to do, because it's not their primary job. It was so powerful that it's now been replicated at family resource centers across the state. Powerful, powerful stuff.
Robin, can I add something to that?
Please,
Okay.
please.
I love how you said use the children's policy councils to gather your data, because that's their job, is to do that. And they're working with youth all the time. But I'll also point out, just a personal experience, is you can use your Kid Count data book. I know as a school board member, we noticed in our Literacy Act that we're supposed to be providing services to those that are not on grade level. Well, of all of those on grade level, only 50% of those students were showing up to summer programs. And so that data was, how can we make sure that they're on grade level if they're not even showing up? And so we really stepped back and looked at the data and determined, you know what, families are working. They can't come to be tutored for 2 hours in the morning. So it prompted us to partner with our YMCA to provide enrichment and after school learning after the tutoring. And so this last summer, our success rate, instead of 50% of those students, we had 80%. And so we really looking at that data about why are we struggling with this? And so I just wanted to add that to your slide. It prompted me to think that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So this is just a question. If you can put your glasses on to see from the perspective of folks in your community, and you will add to this list, I know, what's in it for me. So we've talked a little bit about what's in it for schools, but maybe what's in it for law enforcement if there's a strong collaborative. What's in it for mental health or social services? And what's in it for community-based organizations? I'm going to stop here and we're going to ask people to, if you have examples of how this is working in your community and you want to drop a few words in the chat about how you have work that's happening that is amplifying the work you're doing in your school. We would love to see and hear about that.
Yeah, this is really awesome. I'm so excited we're having this conversation. Part of my role, I get to train in communities throughout the country, and it's a very common message I hear. Educators feel very overwhelmed, very, in many cases, like extended to the very limit of what they feel like their capacity is. And this, I think, in many cases is the solution to trying to help reduce that at a personal level. But then, big picture, I love that example Tracye shared, when we're looking at that, to connect directly to the challenge of students that you expressed two challenges. One, students that were performing below level, and then also the challenge of students that aren't showing up, which the Venn diagram of the two oftentimes overlaps. But being able to connect this community approach directly to challenges is so key. And I know we're going to talk about that even more in just a minute. You've got some great responses in the chat, Robin.
Yeah, they're beautiful. So let's go through these. I mean, I just love them. Justin says the grant I work for funds a student work program. I have 6 students working in disaster relief 911 centers. Oh my word, how amazing. not only because people are getting help through the disaster relief, but what an experience for those students. Jessica says providing a safe environment for teens to create positive experiences and get involved with their community. That's beautiful. Christina Neal says, our program is a collaborative with DSS and our schools to provide therapists and school social workers in the majority of our schools. That is wonderful. We work with schools, law enforcement, and community organizations to assist youth with social, emotional learning skills and mental health needs, as well as crisis intervention services. So I love Ashant. Let's see if my chat scrolled. Sorry. I want to make sure I get your name right. Ashanti. We work with schools, law enforcement, and community organizations. So what I want to highlight here is that I love that you're working with law enforcement. Law enforcement, the community policing side of law enforcement is all about community service. And you'll find some really great people there who will do things if you need them to do things. And so thanks for highlighting that.
And Robin, I'm thinking also looking at some of these fabulous examples that you need to check some of these, you need to check in your state and see if you have a credit for learning opportunity, because in Alabama, our lawmakers actually passed the Alabama Extended Learning Opportunities Act that many of these experiences, the students could get credit on their transcript for the learning. And so what a great partnership between the school and the community and meeting those community needs.
Yeah. So Rhonda says we partner with our local health department and with the UK extension offices to bring in programs for our students. They are free and they boost social emotional learning. I love it. Yeah. Let's see. Kira says we also have an after school girls running an empowerment program. That's a great program. We have one in Alabama called Girls on the Run. So it may be the same one. Justin, the students in our program can get 1 to 3 credits. That's great. And Amy, our alternative ed school partners with 2 local churches to provide resources for our high need students and families. We also have the communities and schools program at our school. You're very fortunate, Amy. And that Amy reminds us here that we probably, when we're thinking about what's in it for me, when you're thinking through those questions and trying to see why the partners are engaged and how you can kind of build on that, we need to include faith-based organizations. We also have CIS, okay, at our in middle school and high school. Our school has strong community partner relationships from parents, PTO, mental health. What a great list of examples. Health department and SAVE. Many of our parents are in law enforcement. Oh, I love that. I love it, love it, love it. And you will find that once you have that kind of energy, it just kind of catches fire. I have been in communities that that just seem kind of down, they just seem kind of down. I was visiting a family resource center in Alabama, and they were health focused. And, they just talked about how hard it was to get the community engaged. Even just to get free health services. So you've got to have you've got to have a spark. You've got to have a spark for strong community collaboratives. And I can see that a lot of you are very fortunate to have strong community partnerships in your area. Ashanti says we do outreach and create partnerships promoting our program, which is grant funded, so it's free to communities. We especially target the law enforcement community. Because they are typically the first to acknowledge when there are potential crisis needs. Yep. For youth in a family or community setting. So we want to try to be proactive and have youth referred before it becomes a crisis. That you're speaking my language. One of my jobs I had is that I actually was the founding executive director of a nonprofit that was started through a community collaborative that was led by our local sheriff's office. And it happened right after Columbine. And I mean, talk about, you know, a spark. That was enough to get folks around the table, and all of these barriers to partnership just broke down. I was living in a community that had 5 public school systems and 7 law enforcement organizations in the county, and they all just worked together. And that's really what you need. Our schools have established a peer mentoring program, so the high school students mentor the middle school. Thank you, Becky.
Oh,
And let's see. Yeah. So you guys have fabulous, fabulous examples here. And I guess the thing that I think is most important when you're reaching out is that you, again, look at it from the big picture. One of the most well-known collaborative models is this backbone model idea, where somebody is sort of providing these backbone services. They're doing this work of managing funds or managing people, like that example we saw earlier. And when that happens, again, it frees up so much of your time when you're fortunate enough to have that. So this is not to bring us down, but these are things that can really get us in trouble. So when you do have that fire happening in your community, a lot of times there can be some really challenging things, because you are trying to break down barriers. You're trying to get over some of those turf issues. And these are just things that I've seen happen that can be trouble. So if there is a news article about the fabulous collaborative work that is happening, or a TV spot, and you don't have control over the media, and your collaborative leaders don't have control over the media, but people can get their feelings hurt. So we want to make sure that everybody's recognized. If somebody gets an award, it needs to be an award for everyone. You say, oh, you know, this is not something that happened in a vacuum. This only happened because all of these partners work together. Unfortunately, there are sometimes possessive personalities, and those folks can be the one who brings the spark at the beginning. And so it can be a little challenging, because you've got this person who, you know, now this work is their baby. They've started it, it's their baby. And if that happens, my experience looking across all my 20, 30 years of work now is that when the person leaves, the program will die. And the possessive personality can sometimes turn people off, and you will lose partners that way. A lack of ongoing communication. So if you are working with a local nonprofit or collaborative, and you are using their services, you should be getting regular communication from them. If you're not, take the step to open up communication and just say, I really want to stay connected because I need what you're doing. My kids and families will benefit from this. If you may find people running ahead of the herd, the fire starters are the worst, the ones who bring the spark. So they'll get so far out in front of everybody else that folks like you in the classroom or school folks will lose track of what's happening. So if you see that, if you feel like the services you're using, they're always changing, you never know what's going on, let them know. Because they are, I promise you, the folks who are doing that community-based organization work, they are highly motivated to do what you need, and they don't know that you can't keep up with what they're doing. So just let them know. It'll pay off for you. And then forgetting that you're working with people and not agencies. So let them build a relationship with you, and you build a relationship with them. The PACT program that I talked about, the FACT program that I talked about earlier, they are all about relationships. Everybody in the school systems there knows about the FACT program. They need it, they depend on it. There's daily communication. And those are the kinds of services that sort of change the landscape for students and families in a school system. I've done a lot of talking, Tracye and Jason, y'all jump in here.
I'll say one thing, you don't have to do this alone. There's tools out there. I know there's some friends from Colorado on here, and this is an open source, but they actually have a tool that they offer to anyone for free that we actually have helped communities use And it's just a simple checklist, and it goes through things like, do you and that agency have the same logistical concerns or philosophical approaches? It even talks about, do they have a W-9? Are they a quality community-based organization? Are there any red flags? Have they just done bankruptcy before? So there's free tools out there that can help you through this process, so you don't have to start from scratch and begin looking on the internet doing research. There's things already out there that can help you develop this, and which hope sometimes might end in like a formal memorandum of understanding partnership agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. One of the things I would add, just kind of back to that relationship piece, is collaborate and connect on common passion. The people that work for nonprofits and the people that give their time to these community programs are typically very high in passion and very high in a desire to advocate on behalf of the populations that they're serving. And so oftentimes, for us, organizationally, we're really fortunate. We specialize in helping deliver the skills of resilience, but we work through all of these. We work through districts, we work through schools, we work through county offices of ed, but we also work through after school programs and community programs. And I know for me, in many cases, it's been kind of connecting through that shared passion and maintaining kind of a common big picture goal of what we're trying to accomplish really helps keep, I think, a collective motivation up.
Mm-hmm. So, Tracye, I love that you mentioned how we know about the quality of a program. So this is just one free tool that you can use. I've done a screenshot here. If you go to guidestar.org, you can you can open a free account, and from there you can actually look at any nonprofits 990, which doesn't tell you everything, but it can tell you a lot. So you'll know, how is their funding set up? Are they likely to go away next month? There's a time lag with a 990, obviously, but if there's not been one in 2 or 3 years, that's a red flag, because legally they have to turn in a 990. So this is just one way that you can see what's happening. And the 990 describes their mission, it describes the services that they provide, and some of the nonprofits will have lots of details in GuideStar. And if they have done Charity Check, which is not required, but if they have done Charity Check and some of these other things, then you can find out what they are eligible for. And just by going through this process, by spending a few minutes looking at what they're doing, you may know about funding that can support them, and you can help them make the connection, because a lot of times there are grant funds. It kills me every year in Alabama. There's money that goes back to the feds across multiple organizations, not just schools, but multiple organizations. I hate that. I hate that, because if we're going to serve families, we need to use every resource we can get our hands on. So you guys are really pivotal to community organizations knowing what's available to them through schools, not just you knowing what's available to you through community-based organizations. All right. So any questions or comments about this before we go further? I'm looking at my chat here.
No, this has been awesome. There's actually been some really nice exchanges between some of the attendees, learning from one another as well as learning from the content that's being shared.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to say kind of a buzzword here. I mentioned earlier the backbone organization. Some of you may have heard about the collective impact model, which is where that comes from. A lot of strong collaboratives, many of them use that collective impact model. You can just Google it, and you'll find lots and lots of information about the collective impact model. But really, it just means that folks who are around that collaborative table are sharing a vision, they're sharing data, they're sharing evaluation results, and they're sharing funding. And those kinds of opportunities are, I think, rare. When people can really get on that page, those pages, and do it well, when everybody can get on the same page and share those things. Particularly evaluation, shared evaluation can be hard, and that's probably a whole nother webinar. But if you think about that Partners for Peace example I gave earlier, they did this. They have a beautiful example of shared data, and that program has grown from when Vicki, the executive director, when she started, when she took over, they had a $400,000 budget. 6 years later, they have a $1.7 million budget. So because people want to invest in things that work, and sharing that data really is the best commercial for the work that's happening. And so when you see a success story, help promote it.
I love it. Time flies on these. What I'm wondering if we can do, we're not going to be able to respond to all these, but I do want to get, because I think it's a good practice to get in the habit of trying to connect partnerships and resources with specific challenges. I do want to take kind of a quick informal poll, just quickly here from our people that are in attendance. Type into the chat, out of curiosity, what are the most common needs you find yourself trying to help students and families address currently? Where do you find your focus? I would love to hear your response to that. And then in the time remaining, I want to make sure we hear some examples from our panelists. So I'm hoping you have some examples or stories of seeing this in action and kind of telling a little bit about what the actual benefit from this might be. But tell us in the chat, share with us what the common needs you find yourself trying to help students and families address are. So we're seeing mental health, food, utility bills, another upvote for mental health needs. Mental health early on looks like is probably the real high one. Absenteeism is a huge one. Transportation, chronic absenteeism, basic needs, more mental health, trauma counseling, housing and transportation. I know attendance. So attendance, mental health, basic needs, like these are, the real common ones. I remember I was up in Oregon, working with a group. I was out there to do resilience training, and they invited me to participate. They were going to hold a parent night, and they wanted to build their parent night around the topic of resilience. And so they did a really smart thing. They partnered up, because parent nights, one of the challenges with these type of things is how do you get people to show up? And they realized that their community pantry, which was run by a local nonprofit, was kind of the hub. It was the front line where parents would consistently show up, particularly the parents that they were really trying to offer help and resources to. And so they partnered up. We partnered up with this nonprofit, and we held a parent event at the community pantry, and we held it on a pickup night, and we announced that there was going to be, we kept it simple, a 30-minute resilience parenting event. And I think we had over 40 parents show up, which for that community was a huge success. And I did a 30-minute workshop with the parents. We had some additional things that we discussed, but it did require some strategy, but it worked out really well to partner up with that frontline community support. And it was offered by the school district. I probably didn't make that clear enough. So it was offered by the school district, understanding they needed to offer greater support for families, and they wanted parents to have access to some of the resources they were giving their students access to. And so we partnered up with the local nonprofit that was on the front line, that was the literal community hub, to deliver those services, and met them there, kind of met them on their ground. And it worked out really well. It was a really fun event. I was really grateful to be a part of. Robin, Tracye, I want to hear from you. You've seen kind of the challenges. I think the people would benefit from hearing some of your stories. I know you both have some incredible examples. Share with us some examples, if you're willing, of how you've seen this happen and what some of the benefits have been. Maybe we can flip the order. Let's go Tracye first and then Robin. And Robin, I definitely want to make sure you mention some of the parent project pieces because that's I know a key piece to your involvement.
Okay, I'll be happy to. I know I shared that the struggle with out of school time and providing tutoring to our students that are behind, and that was very beneficial. And it kind of led to a partnership where the YMCA then began providing after school and before school and after school those wraparound services to our school system. But also, I loved your example, Jason, because food insecurity is a very large issue in Alabama, and we know that from our data. But a lot of times our after school programs are getting hit with child nutrition programs suddenly withdrawing their support. And so that happened in one of our counties. And luckily, they had adopted what Robin was talking about. They had developed those community partners. And the community partners came together, and there was a backbone organization, and it happened to be the bank within their community. And he was able to continue providing those meals to those students. He immediately contacted the churches. He immediately began making sure that those students did not miss a meal. And that really strengthened not just that one issue that they were having, but now there's this partnership where they're providing community service within the 21st Century program to the bank, and the bank in turn is offering a community partnership with them, which also includes that school system. And so there's so many examples of how and local school systems that are struggling with mental health services. They can reach out to their after school program because there is that opportunity within the after school program to deal with issues like food security and mental health services. And there's more flexibility because it's not a school system. It's not a bureaucracy. It's most of the times a community organization or a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA. And just in my local school system, if we didn't have our connection with our YMCA, our school system would have more struggling students because if you look at the data, those that attend those enrichment programs, actually it increases their attendance at school. And so having that connection, we had a school system who they were struggling. They were having to cancel all of their volleyball games because they didn't have enough officials. And so they were able to tap into what I was talking about earlier with our Extended Learning Opportunities Act and write an ELO where those high school students could go through the training to become officials and then serve as officials for the high school volleyball games. And so they didn't have to cancel the games. And so, and also get school credit for that. So there's so many examples of very successful opportunities.
I love that. What about you, Robin?
So I have an example from Mobile, Alabama. A few years ago, the Mobile school system invested through their local family resource center. They trained a bunch of people to do Parent Project, which helps families of teenagers who are engaging in high-risk behavior, helps to pull those kids back to safety. And so they trained a bunch of people, and they are doing a fabulous job. The Family Resource Center is doing a fabulous job serving families from that school system. And a little while after that, 2 women came to the Parent Project certification training, one from Mobile and one was in New York. And our training is online. And these ladies met in Parent Project training, and they fell in what I call Parent Project love. And they decided that this is their, they're going to just do Parent Project. So they do Parent Project online for anybody for free. The organization is called One More Moment. You can find them at onemoremoment.net. They offer about 1 class a quarter. It's 10 weeks long, but it's a 3-pronged approach. So they do Parent Project. They will provide free online mental health services to any family that gets referred. And they do a support box, One More Moment support box. One More Moment was founded by a lady whose daughter was sexually assaulted, and she realized that parents needed mental health support after when that happened. She's been very open about her story, and it's beautiful. She and her son actually founded it, and then Stephanie from New York came in, and they work all the time together. So they do Parent Project, and they do Loving Solutions, which is our program for parents of 5 to 10-year-olds. And that is a free resource. You can refer no matter where you're from, you can refer a family to One More Moments Parent Project. They also do a weekly support group. So if it's 9 weeks until a new parent project starts, they can go to support group every week before that. So they don't just have to wait. They get support from qualified people while they are waiting for a class to start. I don't know how they're doing it for free, but they do, like, they purchase the Parent Project Parent Guide, which is $36. They mail it to the person who's coming to class. It's a fabulous resource. And I tell her, I talk about you on national stuff all the time. Are you sure you want me to keep doing that? She said, yeah, bring them. So there you go. There's Parent Project for you. If you need it, call one.
What a great resource. We are almost out of time. Time always flies. I'm going to put you both on the spot. Whenever I do these, I think it's in part because my role as a national trainer for YTRI, I go out and I try to do a lot of listening, and I always feel a tremendous amount of gratitude to be welcomed into a local community, and given a seat at the table discussing how to help support challenges and students in that area. And one thing I run into a lot when I'm listening, I know there are a lot of educators out there that feel like they kind of exist on an island. They don't necessarily have the support that they wish they did, particularly for the vision that they have of how things should operate or how the system should work to serve the students and the families that they're trying to serve. Do you have any advice for any educator that may feel like they're a little bit on an island and they don't know what to do because they don't believe that they have the administrative support that they wish they did? They feel like they're just one person trying to make a difference. What advice would you give that educator, who I'm certain we have some that are listening right now?
Well, if I could go back and just kind of give my younger self some advice, it would be that don't try to do it all at one time. You have to take one goal and do it for that year and then adopt another goal for another year. And I love what Robin said about looking at the assets within your community. Take some time, just do some asset mapping to determine what resources are within your community. When I did that as a teacher, I determined that in Alabama, we had this one page that said, if your student is shows signs of autism, go here. If your student is struggling with food insecurity, go here. If you have a family member that has had their power cut off, go here. Or just knowing that there's a phone number that you can hand a family member. Because as teachers, you actually see those families, and it's not about just educating the child, it's serving the needs of those families. So taking time to do that and realizing it's not just all about bringing in extra resources. It's about building those networks. And because now you've become a resource to that community organization. Also, I wish I would have slowed down a little bit in my younger career and communicated the successes, because I feel like we're all in our own world reinventing the wheel whenever if we stopped and looked around and built on the success of others and borrowed. Let's borrow what others are doing. I love that Robin shared that free resource. You don't have to go reinvent the wheel. I discovered what was going on in Colorado and reached out to them and said, their network, and said, can we borrow this as a network? And they said, absolutely. And so it's helped a lot of people go through what they're not an attorney. They don't know what a W-9 is or what a contract should look like or what a memorandum of understanding is. So this walks the school system through what an effective contract with a community-based organization looks like. And I would also say celebrate partnerships and celebrate volunteers. A lot of times we have our volunteers and we don't celebrate them. And so just celebrate your success and communicate and take some time as an educator to map what's within your community and your state.
I love it. Robin.
I think, find the fire starter. Ask who is the mover and shaker. Who, if you can make two connections with those people, those are the people who, when you say, this is what I need, they'll build it. They will find the people and build it. And that's especially true in communities where you need stuff built. There are people who will do it, but you got to find them. Ask around.
Really wise. And it's so funny you say that, because I think that's how things started with me and you, Robin. And it's a question that I still find myself asking, and I do it locally as well. But I mean, the question I usually ask is, Robin, if I want to help out, if I want to help assist with the challenge of adolescent mental health, who do I need to talk to in Alabama? And she can tell me. And that's the starting point. And then it starts with a conversation. My contribution, I guess, to that question, I just wrote down a term. I think I just made it up. Somebody else has probably said it, but I'm going to say be radically hopeful. I remember I probably have like a little bit of conduct disorder in me, like some mild conduct disorder, but I used to find it being like defiantly hopeful when I was told no, or felt like the system was telling me no, like could be such a driving force to me. It was like, I, I understand that it's a flawed system, and I can live with that. And even though the system may have like a roadblock for me right here, I'm gonna figure out how to do this in my small office, in this small building, in this small community. I'm going to figure out how to at least offer this thing that I feel like needs to be offered. And in many cases, it was kind of this defiant, radical form of hope that I was like, I'm just not going to give up. But you have to fight the discouragement, because once that kicks in, it becomes really easy to kind of just pull back on the effort. Um, I've
And
written down.
Jason, I think we've all been in the room with people that tell you why you can't do something. And if you have a couple fire starters in the room and positive people, amazing what you can get done.
Amen. I've written down a lot of notes. I've written down a couple terms that both of you use. I'm just going to throw them in the chat here. Hopefully you've caught some of the links that were shared, because some great resources. And by the way, we've got a few more resources we're going to share. Robin's going to mention something from the Parent Project, and I've got something from YTRI we want to share with you. But a couple terms that, if you're not familiar with these, look into them. The credit for learning opportunity is a great way to check multiple boxes and get people on board with a cause. The children's policy councils, look into that, find out what version of that is being offered in your community. And then the Kid Count data book, I think, are all great resources. Data helps drive decision making. Oftentimes, when bureaucracy is getting in the way of moving something, sometimes the best way to nudge the bureaucratic process is to provide data. Sometimes that's the easiest box to check to kind of move that roadblock out of the way, and then be able to move forward. And then those fire starters, as was mentioned, you got to keep them in the room with you, keep them in the car with you, and they keep us all motivated. They're really important as well. Robin, do you want to tell the people what resource you'd like to offer to them? And while you do that, I'm going to put up contact information looping, so that if people want to reach out to any of us, feel free. But go ahead, Robin.
So yeah, we're going to actually share with you, we'll email it to you, the chapter 1 of all of our Parent Project curricula. So unit 1 in English and Spanish for Parent Project, unit 1 for Parent English and Spanish for Loving Solutions. You can take that, use it, copy it, however you want to use it, we want you to. And I saw a question in the chat and just want to make sure everybody knows, yes, One More Moment is open to anyone. That is the silver lining to COVID, is that Zoom is so magic. So anybody, so just their services are offered on Central Time. So you have to be aware of that, but anyone, so they will set you up.
I love
Also,
it.
I urge you to reach out in your state to your after-school network, because they have so many resources that complement what goes on in school systems for extended
Yeah,
learning.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tracye. You're very humble in your approach, but Tracye represents a really remarkable organization. She's part of the Alabama Expanded Learning Alliance, but there is a group in all 50 states. Each state has one of those Expanded Learning Alliance groups. And look into it and reach out to Tracye or Robin if you have questions about any of their projects. From YTRI, we are going to share with you a parent guide to resilience that you can share with your parents. You can link it in any of your online resources. You can use it in conjunction with parent nights if you would like to hold them. We're also going to send you a sample lesson plan from the YTRI curriculum that will help you teach the skills of resilience in your classroom or office to your students. It's a great resource with within a great model as well. And so you should get a follow-up both from us at YTRI and from the parent project. And then if you have any questions, please, these our panelists are very generous with their time, and they're very serious about wanting to collaborate with great educators throughout the country. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Before I put a final bookend on the discussion, Robin, Tracye, do you have any concluding thoughts? Anything else you think we missed, or you want to make sure we add for the record on this?
I just want to say thank you for the wisdom that was shared in the chat. This is a fabulous group, and I have learned things from what you've typed, so I appreciate you.
And I ditto exactly what Robin said. Thank you, Jason, for including me.
Well, it was my pleasure. It was all of our pleasure. And I agree. Thank you so much to our attendees for sticking around and sharing great ideas and great comments in the chat. Really fun collection of ideas. Give a huge round of applause to our panelists. Robin and Tracye, thank you for both bringing your A games. I'm super excited to collaborate with you in the future. I referenced at the beginning, like these resilience events. So we were doing those in person, but as was mentioned, it's a virtual world now. We are always looking for communities that are interested in hosting resilience events locally. If that's a thing that you're interested in, please reach out to me or reach out to our info line and let's talk. Let's figure out how to do a local resilience event. We can get our founder, Christian Moore, on. Some of you may have heard him. He's a very dynamic speaker and he's a fire starter. You know, you talk about fire starters. He is absolutely a fire starter, and he's great to get in on these. So anyway, huge thanks to our attendees. Thank you everybody for showing up.